Welcome back to Podium Esports coverage of the PCA Sim Racing Zone Group Challenge Round 2 this evening, live from Sonoma Raceway in Sonoma, California. At least iRacing's virtual version of Sonoma, that is. James Pike, the voice of Podium Esports, alongside Taylor Burris, Rachel Whiteford, and Ryan Bauer to bring you all the action from virtual Northern California for this, the Sport Class, which is brought to you by Pirelli. Power is nothing without control. This yet another event of PCA Sim Racing presented by Hagerty Motorsports. Second race of 4 this evening. We will turn our attention to the field in just a few moments, but I think we saw it pretty quickly that really 3 things, Taylor. 1, opening lap can be tricky, though maybe not necessarily as tricky as we figured it might be. 2, this track is very narrow. 3, maybe more importantly, lap traffic is going to play a much more significant factor tonight than it did a week ago at Watkins Glen.
It certainly is, James. One of the things that we're going to keep an eye on is where the leaders who are trying to get around this lap traffic picks and chooses when to make those passes. One false error could send them careening into one of the tire barriers, into the barriers, or off track, or even into other traffic here throughout the race. So it's a pick and choose your battles, especially for those who have the good lead, and for those who are getting ready to be lapped. Be mindful. Keep heads up on everything going on around you in order to survive here at Sonoma.
A big point indeed as we watch some of these drivers try and complete their qualifying runs and watch some of the last few qualifying laps wrap up. This is Thomas Doherty and Mats Mardini. You're looking at Ryan McGee also coming around to finish his qualifying lap, but I have a feeling we may well advance into our race session in short order. But as it stands, coming out of last week, it was William Waldron, Gregory Sampson, and Thomas Lamai, the 3 drivers who earned the most points that aren't already qualified for the Zone Group Challenge Championship. Again, we'll stress that yet again and all throughout our broadcast. If the drivers have that check mark at the top right of their lower third, they are already qualified for the Zone Group Challenge Championship. You'll see them in April. If that check mark is not there, then these drivers are racing over the next 3 weeks now. This included for one of 3 spots per class for a place in the Zone Group Challenge Championship. That's where we sit with things. As you see some of the big-time drivers and one of the fastest men in PCA Sim Racing, the man who went to victory in the PCA Sim Racing team racing event on Wednesday night at Sebring. Cameron Martineau and the Matrix Motorsports Blue Machine got the win in Florida a few nights back and should be in contention when we get to the Zone Group Challenge Championship in April as well. Looks like just a few drivers finishing off their final few laps as we get set to bring you the starting grid for this, the second race of the campaign for this, the Sport Class PCA Sim Racing, the Zone Group Challenge. Dave Craig sets the fast time. He starts on pole with 1:24.933. Daniel Rubel and Aaron Ambrosino complete your top 3. They are all qualified for the championship. You see that by virtue of their check marks. Dean Chapman, Will Waldron, and Andrew Cheslott are going to be the 3 top drivers on the grid who have not qualified in. Waldron, the only one of those 3 who entered this race. Top 3 in points. Waldron, of course, your points leader. Antonio De Silva starts 7th, Carl Bocchieri 8th. It's Thomas Doherty and Keith Morgan completing the top 10 on the starting grid, Taylor.
In the 11th position is Mawasa Mardini, followed by Orkan Gerlap in 11th and 12th. Bob Moore is starting from the 13th position with Ryan Krosneski in 14th. 15th is Sebastiano Ballestieri, followed by Nick Paglia in 16th. James Legault is in 17th, followed by Thomas LeMay in 18th. Gregory Sampson is in 19th, and Paul Solk rounds out your top 20.
21st tonight is Curtis Krummel with Arne Klassen in 22nd, Ronald Cahill in 23rd, Adam Gerling in 24th, Tom Crane in 25th, Ryan McGee 26th, and Scott Lilly in 27th.
That concludes the starting grid for this Sport Class event, which takes place at Sonoma Raceway. It's the NASCAR Cup Series layout that we're using. 12 turns in all, and racing once again 9:30 local time earlier today in Sim, March 12th, 2021. Weather conditions are pretty much identical. 67 degrees Fahrenheit air temp, 70 degrees Fahrenheit track temp, winds to the north at 2 miles an hour, humidity of 28%. Those will stay consistent throughout all 4 of our races this evening. We go for 30 minutes plus 1 lap, depending on when the leader crosses the start and finish line to round us out, either get us to 30 minutes or we need to go 1 lap longer to get us clear. But 30 minutes just depends on where things will sit. The circuit is 2.52 miles, 5.43 kilometers in length. Tonight's broadcast of the sport class of PCA Sim Racing is brought to you by Pirelli. Or rather, yes, no, Pirelli. Goodness gracious, my brain is that off. But proud sponsor of the sport class for 2021 in PCA Sim Racing, and founded in Milan in 1872. And today, a brand known for its cutting-edge technology, high-end production excellence, and passion for innovation that draws heavily on its Italian roots. Pirelli is among the world's major producers of tires and is OEM supplier to Porsche. Find out more at www.pirelli.com. Pirelli, power is nothing without control. Dave Craig in control of this field, and then Chapman, Waldron, Cheslock, your 3 that you want to pay attention to amongst those who have not already qualified for the Zone Group Challenge. Entering tonight, it's Waldron, Gregory Sampson, Thomas Lamai, Ronald Cahill, and Adam Gerling that enter top 5 in points. Of note, Dean Chapman has qualified well, but he starts this evening 16th in the point standings, and Andrew Cheslock entirely outside of the top 20, so certainly the opportunity to shake things up, Taylor.
It certainly is, so we'll have to keep an eye and see who will be some of the movers and shakers here tonight at Sonoma Raceway, keeping an eye on some of those drivers that we just talked about. But Dave Craig, though, is going to be one also to see if he can continue his winning ways here, but he's got a lot of pressure to deal with from Daniel Rubel and Aaron Ambrosino, who does have a good run here. The last time we ran the PCA Series 5 had some great runs.
Green flag is out. We are racing and underway in this sport class as Dave Craig will begin the thundering charge up the hill to turns 1 and 2 at Sonoma. Craig, then Rubel, then Ambrosino. And the big question, Rachel, is whether or not they all get through in one piece.
Yeah, it's always the tricky part here, of course, at Sonoma, and everyone's behaving themselves. We've got the 3 wide coming out of 2. One car goes off a little bit further up, but it's a solo just running wide. But everyone generally made it there. A lot of polite driving through 1 and 2 there. I think everyone's just as afraid of that as, we are up in the booth here watching this thing, because there's some close calls, but everyone's generally behaving. But the 3 wide through 2, I think, was a genuinely optimistic move.
A little bit there. So one car goes wide. Sebastiano Banistrelli and Bob Moore came together a little bit and lost some track position. Otherwise, everybody largely through that very tricky uphill section, which has surprised me, Taylor. I think we all figured that we were going to be in for more incidents, especially amongst some of the earlier classes, but not the case. It's been clean racing through there on the opening lap.
It certainly has been. I think a lot of the race officials have been just giving those small little reminders, letting them know, hey, it's a 30-minute race. A lot can happen. Take your time. Be smart with everyone around you and have fun. And I think that's what everyone's out there here trying to do, as here comes our race leader, Dave Craig, and Aaron Ambrosino in that second spot as they come through the hairpin for the first time here under race conditions. Lap number 1 is complete as you're on board with Aaron Ambrosino.
Aaron Ambrosino out of the Hudson Champlain region trying to run down Dave Craig. An opening lap was pretty quick for Ambrosino. Solid stuff there. He was not terribly far off, but we'll see how gaps begin to roll now that we've got the first lap out of the way, and we can start seeing what pace numbers look like and how much faster these drivers are compared to the other cars around them, Rachel.
Yeah, absolutely, and that's going to be one of the big factors for them, of course, with how this is running so far. They're having to kind of work around not only the guys who are qualified in, but the guys who are not qualified in, trying to find their place in this whole thing. And the paces are going to be slightly different between them, but we'll have to see how it comes through. Some of them can be there, in the right place at the right time, but it's all going to be about choosing your moment here. And the passing opportunities at Sonoma are actually very limited. The run out of the shoe here in towards the main track is going to be a good opportunity for that big dive there, because you've got a big wide double apex corner. Really lets you use that time to get through and get past before you come out the corner and have good speed going into the S's. That momentum is important.
that were all over Antonio da Silva, who did not get a good exit out of the carousel the last time by. Gave up a few spots as looks like Andrew Cheslock ends up in trouble over at the end of the S's, so he'll lose some time. And all of a sudden, how about Will Waldron? He's gone all the way up into second as Aaron Ambrosino comes down pit road for service along with Carl Bocchieri. I wonder if there may have been some issues that last time by for both of those drivers.
Yeah, Ambrosino actually was hitting the wall coming out of that second to last corner, turn number 10, so he decided to pull it down pit road, and unfortunately his day might be done with that damage. But Will Waldron now up into P2, about 3.5 seconds back from Dave Craig, so he's pretty much just trying to take care of his equipment. Closest battle inside the top 5 is actually between the 700 of Keith Morgan and the 24 of Antonio da Silva. Throw in Thomas Doherty as well, as those three are, trouble for Doherty. He goes wide and hits the barriers. He has to turn around and get back going. So it's now Morgan and da Silva going head-to-head.
So Doherty ends up in trouble, and we can also tell you that Ambrosino, Bocchieri, and Doherty actually are serving penalties that were issued after we saw the checkered flag last week at Watkins Glen. So Race Control reviewed the tape, found some infractions on their part, and decided to black flag all of them. So that's what they were serving, and Doherty has to serve that penalty in addition to all the time that he has lost. He just now got going in the right direction around the carousel, so he goes all the way back to 23rd in live timing and scoring, and will fall back even further because he still has to come down pit road. Meanwhile, Bocchieri and Ambrosino are back on the racetrack already.
Yeah, they are more at the moment. Yeah, looking here at Bob Moore, the 772 northeast region for him there, in through P11 at the moment. He's not locked in, but he's looking like he's in a good position here to gain some spots if this thing can go a bit more in his favor. Really close there to leg out in 10th. Looking back at him there from the rear wing of the 27 car. And, Central Indiana region driver is looking like he's had a very fast day so far. Qualifying was good for him, but it's still going to be a little bit up in the air in terms of where this one plays through. He's up a lot of spots already. 7.
Good work from James Legault of the Central Indiana region. You can imagine what city may or may well not sit in the heart of that. They take a state name and throw a polis on the end, and it makes it pretty easy to figure out what city we're talking about, Taylor.
It certainly does, as we keep an eye on the rest of the field right now, working their way through the carousel. We've seen a lot of great battles here in the challenge class going through the carousel, and we're starting to see a group of the field now bunching themselves up through that carousel. So we could see some great passing opportunities out of there, James, before we get to this hairpin. As a couple of cars are locking up their tires a little bit, runs a little wide. I believe that was Sampson who went wide, but was able to still hold on to his position in 13th, as Curtis Crummell, Paul Sulk as well are trying to find their way up through the field as they work their way through the S's.
Gregory Sampson, part of Zone 5. Legault, part of Zone 4, by the way, for those wondering. Zone 5 here covers much of Texas. Sampson out of the Maverick region as there's an incident right in front of him. I believe that's Curtis Crummell, who just lost it in front of everybody there. And how much of a heart-in-mouth moment was that, Rachel Whiteford?
I think if Elon Musk is watching, he might have just got an idea of the SN11 version of Starship. That was a very significant impact there. Unfortunate timing, the car just spun around, driver lost grip there in the corner, and unfortunate unavoidable collision.
Unavoidable collision there. That was Nick Paglia who ended up in the air and then came back to pit road, but with a heavily damaged machine, so he'll have to get his car fixed up, and we'll see what sort of work he can do in the meantime. Dave Craig out in front by 6 seconds ahead of Will Waldron, but I think almost better to turn your attention back to, well, just about any of these battles. Maybe start with Legault, start with maybe Antonio da Silva or somebody to that end, because whereas we had a lot of spread out racing in our first race of the evening with the challenge class, this sport class presented by Pirelli go from 9th all the way back to Arnie Clausen in 15th, and it's maybe 5 seconds separating 7 cars, Taylor?
I would say so, so we'll have to keep track and see what's going on right now with this battle here as we watch the field work their way through the S's. Oh, the car is off right there. That's James Legault who is having some trouble right now from the Central Indiana region. Zone 4 is able to get back onto the track, but I believe that's going to be off, and he's going to request a tow. So we'll have to keep track and see what he's going to do. But you're on board with car 700, Keith Morgan, who's climbing up the hill right now, having a good run in the 4th position as he's trying to see if he can get a podium finish here tonight.
Legault got off in the S's and went through the grass and couldn't catch the cars that came back across the pavement and slammed the fence, and off he went into the tire barrier, and work to be done for Legault to catch back up as we watch some of the rest of the field come through. Looks like we are keeping our eyes on Keith Morgan and Antonio da Silva. Da Silva of the Metro New York region, of course, part of the powerhouse of Zone 1 in the Northeast. Antonio da Silva a little bit further back, also a Zone 1 or a Metro New York driver. And you want to talk about competitive zones within the PCA, Rachel. Zone 1 goes right up there. There are plenty of great drivers between the Metro New York region, the Hudson Champlain region, the Finger Lakes region, the Niagara region. New York State has some fast drivers in PCA sim racing.
Oh, they surely do. They have some really quick drivers, absolutely really fast. Look at this right now. Will Waldron, second place, not qualified in the Hudson Champlain region, as mentioned. He is really fast. Really, really fast. Zone 1, honestly, I think they have the cream, to be honest, of really quick drivers. It seems like everyone at the front ends up being from Zone 1.
Zone 1 and Zone 5, I think, are the ones you earmark, which maybe not a huge surprise there, Taylor. That's New York State and Texas, two of the most populous states in the United States. So you figure you're working with a bigger sample size, you're going to pick up a few faster drivers compared to the norm. You're right on board with another one of those Texans, Gregory Sampson, out of the Maverick region, Zone 5, riding in 10th, just ahead of Paul Sulk, trying to chase down Bob Bourne.
I'd have to say probably the Maverick regions, James, is probably one of the second largest regions in the PCA Sim Racing Series. I mean, we have drivers such as Leif Peterson, who is one of the defending champions here in Series 5. So a great opportunity for a lot of these Maverick regions drivers in these lower classes to look up to and kind of make sure, hey, I could be one of those featured Maverick regions PCA Sim Racing Series champions one day. And they can learn a lot from their Texas native of Leif Peterson.
Peterson strong as we watch this battle between Sampson and Sulk. This is Zone 5 versus Zone 1 here. As Sampson looks to the inside, will try and cut this very tight hairpin over at the far end of the racetrack, and then thought better of it, decided to tuck in line, keep his place ahead of Sebastiano Balistrieri, and try and chase down Sampson potentially for a run maybe into turn 11, Rachel.
Yeah, he's got a good chance to turn 11, but again, we said 11's a really tough place to do it. Whilst it's a great place to pass, you can only open yourself up to being passed back because you lose so much momentum trying to pass in that corner.
Big, wide, sweeping arc from Gregory Sampson as Sulk tried to get to the rear quarter panel but could not. And now Sampson's going to take the benefit of the longer run out of the hairpin to stretch this gap to maybe 2 or 3 car lengths before they climb to the top of the hill.
Right on board with Ryan right now. He's trying to see if he can get around Bob Moore, who's been doing quite well in this race so far, running inside the top 10 in that 8th position, as Ryan Korzeniewski is trying to see if he can find a way around. Bob Moore is trying to come around the hill as they work their way towards the carousel. Moore doing a great job. I gotta say, for the past 2 races, compared to what he did in Series 5, he's probably one of the most improved drivers I've seen, so I'm pretty sure he's learned a lot from his competitors and took notes where he can be able to run inside the top 10 as they come out of the carousel heading towards the second hairpin.
There's a lot that's happened in PCA Sim Racing since the end of Series 5. We've had the initial rounds of the Zone Group Challenge over the course of the end of 2020 and the beginning of this year. There's weekly events that take place, driver education classes that take place, and so much that goes on outside of the broadcast. So if you're interested in learning more about PCA Sim Racing, head on over to the website at pcasimracing.com and make sure you get your chance to dig in. Find out a little bit more about the largest single mark car club sim racing group in all the world. Over 500 members across PCA membership. It's a widespread. Impressive all the same.
Oh, it's insane. It's absolutely huge. And the support and size, of course, of the whole PCA sim racing endeavor has been massive and been so cool for these guys. It's absolutely amazing to see.
Riding with Antonio da Silva, who currently sits in 5th. he is looking for a podium finish amongst the non-qualified drivers, which is what you need to work for and what you need to target if you want to advance into the Zone Group Challenge Championship next month. That's what they're fighting for, especially if you don't have a check mark next to your name, and De Silva does not. But a quality run from him so far, and not terribly far back from Keith Morgan either. Only a 1 second gap and change to Morgan's machine.
Certainly so. As you see Morgan right there, he's guaranteed a spot for the Zone Group Championship, but I know someone like Antonio De Silva wants to try to work his way up through the field to give him a little bit extra cushion in case of a mistake that has happened, as here comes our race leader in the 996, Dave Craig, Zone 2 from the Keystone region, as he once again climbs up the hill as we're closing in on the halfway point.
We are closing in on the halfway point, but Will Waldron with the solid and impressive run, looking to go back-to-back and be the top finisher in the first 2 weeks amongst all drivers yet to qualify for the Zone Group Challenge Championship. He is making the grade, as is Dean Chapman, in his, call it neon yellow or green and black and white. Rachel, maybe? Portia?
Yeah, I quite like that design, actually. It's a beautiful car. Love how it's set up, and I love the artwork on the body. That is quite interesting. That cat looks horrified to get a race car.
That's a Wildcat if I've ever seen one, and I think, at least if I can read correctly, that's what it says. So we ride on board now with Keith Morgan out of the Central Indiana region in Zone 4, trying to chase down this machine and see if he can go get Dean Chapman for 3rd overall. Morgan, though, already assured of a place in the Zone Group Challenge Championship, one of the 4 fastest drivers from Zone 4 in this sport class, so he'll be competing next month. But Chapman still got to race for something, so you would expect, Taylor, there'd be a little bit more defense play.
Yeah, I thought so indeed, but right now everyone's just minding their P's and Q's. There's quite a bit of a gap throughout the top 3 right now. Of course, this is the closest battle inside the top 5 between Morgan and De Silva as they work their way up through. And then, of course, you have Morgan trying to close in on Dean Chapman for that 3rd spot as you're on board with Keith Morgan in that 700 Porsche. Looking throughout the field right now, another close battle has to be between Bob Moore and Ryan Gornetsky, who we talked about earlier on, as they're now inside the top 10 as they once again climb the hill here as we have reached the halfway point.
We have indeed reached the halfway point. Means it's time for the Sport Class Midway Race Break, which is brought to you by Pirelli. Power is nothing without control. Dave Craig, your race leader in this sport class tonight at Sonoma Raceway. He's in control of this by a solid 9 seconds and change out of the Keystone Regional Pennsylvania Zone 2. They're going to battle with Zone 1 a lot, I believe, over the course of this championship. Will Waldron is the fastest man amongst those not already qualified once again, just as he was at Watkins Glen a week ago. He comes from Zone 1, the Hudson Champlain region in New York State, running in 2nd overall. 3rd right now on the board is Dean Chapman, staying with Zone 1, the Northern New Jersey region driver, and also racing for his right to compete in the Zone Group Challenge Championship. And yes, the Zone 1 Wildcats are riding and I guess frightening everybody else at this point with their pace. He's P3 at this time. 4th, we can see just behind him is Keith Morgan out of the Central Indiana region, the highest running of our Zone 4 drivers in this class, and also qualifying for the Zone Group Challenge Championship already. 5th overall, Antonio De Silva out of the Metropolitan New York region, Zone 1, once again well represented in the top 5, as Rachel said earlier. 6th, as it stands, is Argun Garat, the Rally Sport region, Zone 4. Not first time we've seen somebody from that region really jump up and make a stand in this championship, at least during our portion of it. But a good run for Argun. It's Moises Mardini running in 7th overall out of the Orange Coast region in Zone 8. Mardini trying to chase down everybody in his green Porsche to try and make his way through to the end. And then Bob Moore running in the 8th position. He still needs to qualify out of the Northeast region surrounding the greater Boston area. Yet another Zone 1 driver. You slide back just behind him on your screens there. You see the yellow and the black of Ryan Korzeniowski running in P9, Zone 9, Rocky Mountain region. We need another 9 to complete the trilogy, I suppose. 10th overall as it stands out of the Jersey Shore region. Yet again, another Zone 1 presence near the front. It's Paul Sulk in his blue and white Grey Goose machine.
In the 11th position in the 516 in somewhat of a little bit of a darker Gulf color, Sebastiano Balistrieri from the Metropolitan New York region, Zone 1, trying to see if he can guarantee him a spot. He has a little bit of work to do, but he could possibly do it. He sits in 11th. Another 2.2 seconds back, you're going to find the Maverick region's very own Gregory Sampson in that Martini livery paint scheme as he works his way towards the hairpin. He's in a gaggle of cars of traffic as they work their way out of the hairpin. You go about not too far back, you'll find the 41 of Curtis Crummell from the Carolinas regions in that black and purple as he works his way across the start-finish line up the S's to compete. He's from the Zone 3 as he's trying to see if he can get his way into the Zone Group Challenge Championship. In 14th position, car number 14, Andrew Cheslott. He's currently trying to fight his way up through the field right now in a tight battle with drivers such as Crummell and Sampson as they work their way down the hill. In the 15th position, Arnie Clayson from the San Diego region as he sees a lot of smoke out in front of him. Hopefully tries to make it through cleanly and does in the car 242 in that silver and red Porsche from Zone 8 in the West Coast hometown track for him here today at Sonoma. In 16th, Carl Porcheri in the Metropolitan New York region, car number 80, the Pegasus Racing Porsche. He's pretty much all by himself for the most part, has about a 3-second disadvantage to Clayson and about a 7-second advantage to the next car in 17th. Thomas LeMay in the car 701 right now from the Northeast region, Zone 1, trying to mind his P's and Q's and work his way up to the field. 18th, Adam Gerling in the 248 Porsche from the Metropolitan New York region. He is in a different story. He has a heavy battle to fight with car in 19th, the 08 of Aaron Ambrosino from the Hudson Champlain region as they snake their way through the S's heading to the final few corners. Rounding out your top 20 in car 864 is going to be Tom Crane from the Mardi Gras region down in Louisiana as he is in Zone 5 in his yellow and black Porsche. Rachel?
21st is Thomas Doherty in car 59. Central Indiana region, Zone 4. He is locked in, of course, for the challenge. We'll see where he goes with this one. 22nd place is Nick Paglia, car 4 from Zone 10, Nord Stern region. Nick, of course, is one lap down. First car lap down 8 spots from where he started. James Lejeau is in 23rd, car 27, Central Indiana region, Zone 4. Unfortunate race for him. He lost a number of spots after an incident earlier on. And trying to find some work back. Behind them, it's Ryan McGee, 24th in the 944 from the Nordstern region also. It's the number 10, very close call there with the car behind him, as he's also 3 laps down after an incident he had earlier this race. Ronald Cahill in the 1 is in 25th place. I believe he's off the track. So those remaining cars, Cahill, Rubel, and Lilly, are also no longer running.
That completes your full field rundown for the sport class, which is brought to you by Pirelli. Power is nothing without control. There's your Pirelli mid-race report. It means that we can at least check back in with Dave Craig for a split second. He's now up to 11.5 seconds clear of Will Waldron for second, and Waldron is about 6 seconds clear of Dean Chapman. So not really much to worry about amongst those front two, but third place is still fun. Dean Chapman and Keith Morgan are in a good battle. Good battle for fifth between Antonio Da Silva and Argungo Ralph, and then slide a little bit further back and maybe some battles elsewhere. How about Andrew Chesluck and Carl Bucchieri at 14th and 15th? But all eyes at this stage on third and fifth. That's where we should see the action in the final 8 minutes and change of this race, Taylor.
Certainly so, as we keep on watching this battle, probably the best battle here since I dropped the green flag between Keith Morgan and Antonio Da Silva as they work their way through. The S's coming out of turn number 10, heading through turn number 11 right now, as we'll see if Da Silva can maybe get a good run through there. Can't quite make it work. Hugs that inside curbing, comes off rocketing down the front straightaway here as you're on board with Da Silva trying to catch up to the scaredy cat of Keith Morgan with his Porsche working his way up the hill once again.
Looking at Dean Chapman riding in third, but you see Keith Morgan right there ready to make a move. If Chapman makes any sort of mistake whatsoever, it might not necessarily be a big one, but when they're this tight, it'll be close. And Morgan was 2 tenths faster that last time by, Rachel, so a change for position is not out of the question whatsoever.
Yeah, no, it's entirely possible. And with how this is going so far and the gaps between them, yeah, more than possible. With the time they're looking at, a lap or two, possibly.
If the difference in times holds, that's the biggest question.
That, of course, would always be a factor, but there's not a lot of that left.
Not much at all. 7 minutes left on the clock in the second race of the night, as Dave Craig and Will Waldron have definitely jumped off and leapt away from the rest of the field. So eyes up on Craig. We'll see if he can maintain his run. But again, this is just practice for him. Waldron has incentive to at least keep that car in second. The points that he could get coming out of B2 would be a massive boost to his hopes of making the Zone Group Challenge Championship. And then you've got the Chapman-Morgan battle and the Da Silva-Garout battles just behind this group, Taylor.
Certainly so. Right now, as we watch those two groups of cars rocketing past the start-finish line, Gerloff right now is trying to make up ground on Antonio Da Silva as they climb up the hill right now, hitting his mark, hitting the apex. I gotta say, Gerloff's doing a great job compared to what we saw him in the team racing series at Sebring. So a good little recovery run that he's having here tonight at Sonoma as a battle right now between Morgan and Chapman. Morgan will go to the inside of Chapman and just hip check him just a little bit. Continues on his way, as we will have to probably see the officials take a look at that.
I don't think there's going to be much to review on that one. We'll take a look at the pass and how it occurred. It happens coming into turn 4, and that was just a really solid braking move from Keith Morgan. By the time Chapman was beginning to turn into the corner, Morgan was already there and even with the front bumpers. So, so far as I know the rules, if you're clear of greater than 50% of the rear end of a car, then you have control of the racing line, Rachel Whiteford. So I assume there's going to be absolutely no call there. And even then, Chapman just bounced off of Morgan before getting back onto the racetrack. What that's done though is move Chapman away from Morgan, and now he's in a battle with Da Silva and Garout. So instead of a battle for third and a battle for fifth, we have fourth, fifth, and sixth on top of each other.
Yeah, it's really closed things up a little bit. And yeah, it's one of those racing deals, I think. It's going to be the way it goes. I think that's the way the officials will see it. But yeah, this has really tightened up the top 6, top 7 cars here. It's going to get real spicy in the next few laps.
So we'll just sit, wait, see what happens in the final 5 minutes. We're just south of that mark now, and it's Chapman, Da Silva, and Garout who are within a total of, I believe, maybe a second and a half of one another, and the 3 tightest cars on track battling for positions in this class. As here comes Garout. He got a very good run and was all over Da Silva for a split second there, coming past the start finish line, but then backed out of it and decided to regroup to get a good run out of 2.
He certainly did get a good run out of the carousel here. I guess a great run as they make the run towards the hairpin here. Is he going to take a peek to the inside? The answer is going to be yes. Will he try to outbrake him into the hairpin? The answer will be no. Not close enough to make the pass work for Gerloff as they now snake through the S's. Another thing to keep in mind, Keith Morgan, he's actually caught Will Waldron in the number 9 as they work their way through the S's. So it could be a good battle right here for second position. And you don't forget, you got Dean Chapman, Da Silva, and Oregon Gerloff trying to see if they can catch up to these two drivers as they head into turn 11.
It's not really a position that means much, I think, for Will Waldron. Morgan's already qualified for the Zone Group Challenge Championship. Waldron has not. So you figure if Morgan gets there, Waldron will probably let him go. But again, we've seen stranger things happen, Rachel, so I won't totally rule it out of the equation that something wild might happen between those two. And Waldron may want to fight for second anyway, given how close we are to the end of the race.
Yeah, exactly. It's definitely getting into that sort of territory, really, with this one. But at the moment, it's about waiting for the opportunity. And they're also close. It's going to come down to who's going to be brave on the final lap, because we might see a last corner pass, I should say, with how tight this is.
Everybody chasing the man on the screen that you see, Dave Craig from the Keystone Region Zone 2 21 seconds. He's been the fastest man on track all night long, and now has maybe, call it a lap and a half or two left. It'll be tight as to whether or not we get one more of these in. We'll wait to see what timing and scoring says, but it's going to be close. I think we'll probably sit on, yeah, it looks like it's going to be about 2 laps to go for Dave Craig as Keith Morgan continues to run down Will Waldron for second overall.
Yeah, let's keep an eye on this battle. A little bit of lap traffic up ahead of Waldron as they work their way into turn 11. Waldron tries to go to the inside of the lap traffic in front of him right now as they snake his way through. And then now we'll see Keith Morgan work his way around the lap traffic as they come across the start-finish line here. Still about 0.8 of a second separating the top two drivers right here as they work their way up through turns 1 and 2, climbing up to the top of the hill before making the downhill run here at Sonoma.
It's Montez Mardini that you're riding on board with, trying to chase down Ogun Garau. And those two now nose to tail. So this is a proper battle for 4th, 5th, 6th, and now 7th now that Mardini's gotten into the fray. And I wonder if we've not seen the last of this group yet, especially with the lap traffic that Antonio De Silva's having to work through.
Yeah, the traffic for De Silva is going to be a big factor, of course, and it gets to that stage. It got to that stage last race, of course, but we're not seeing as much lap traffic this time round with the overall speed difference in this class. But De Silva's having to back that hard because it's put him in a really tough spot.
Really tough work there as off goes Ogun Garau. He tried to get around the lap traffic and somehow drove it wide enough to make it work. He just made a really big arc, but he kept his speed up, and all of a sudden, Garau has gapped Mardini by a solid 1.5 seconds. So I almost wonder if that works out at the end of the day for him, Taylor.
It certainly did. I believe Mardini got held up by that lap car as they entered into that hairpin, so that will give a little bit of a gap right now between the two drivers as we keep an eye on that as he's starting to separate. And it looks like De Silva goes a little wide as well out of the hairpin for him. That's going to allow Garau to make up ground on Antonio De Silva as they come across the line. This should be the white flag for the race leaders.
It is indeed the white flag. Will Waldron and Keith Morgan still fighting for second as Dave Craig is working his way through the carousel, Rachel.
Yeah, he's trying to do what he can with this one. Morgan up there behind him, rushing into this one here, trying to head down to that chute now, dropping into it, and it's getting pretty close for these guys at the front as Waldron trying to hold off the charging car behind him.
Waldron trying to maintain the P2 run that he has had for the entirety of this race since the green flag dropped. But it's all about Dave Craig at the front of this field, who is now clear by 22 seconds. He's been faster and faster than everybody else with each passing lap of this race, and there is no question who the fastest driver in the sport class is tonight out of the Keystone region in zone number 2. It's Dave Craig and his black and red Porsche 911 RSR that will come across the stripe to win the sport class in tonight's PCA Sim Racing Zone Group Challenge round presented by Pirelli. Battle for second is still on, though. They'll come through the final hairpin one last time. Taylor Burris and Morgan had a sin, but it won't be enough.
Will not be enough as Will Waldron and Keith Morgan are now coming out of the hairpin for the final time. Checkered flag is out. Waldron will come home second. Keith Morgan rounds out your podium, but we still got a couple of other battles to keep an eye on. Got Antonio De Silva and Ogun Garau coming to the line as those two will finish 5th and 6th.
Tight as they were, no changes between 4th and 7th in those final few laps. So it stayed Chapman, De Silva, Garau, and Mardini, your 4 in order. Then Bob Moore, then Korziowski, then Solk. We now wait for Arnie Klassen. Klassen running in 18th is the last car on the lead lap, and the last one that we need to see come across the line before we can read off your full field rundown. He, of course, one of the drivers already qualified for the Zone Group Challenge Championship, so these are just practice races for him, Rachel.
Yeah, absolutely. Those guys still fighting for the glory there in the individual races, and also driving for the fun, because let's not forget, these guys all love racing.
That plus this 911 RSR is a very driver's-friendly GTE machine within the sim. I've put plenty of laps in it myself, and it's just a machine that clicks very nicely, especially when you get a good handle for it. It's, I think, a little bit more approachable than some of the other cars in this class in the sim, and workable too, as Clausen comes across the line, and we now finally can give you your full field rundown and tell you where your favorite driver finished. Dave Craig, your overall winner. Will Waldron, the fastest amongst the drivers not already qualified. He comes home second behind Craig. Third, completing the podium, was Keith Morgan. Dean Chapman and Antonio Da Silva complete the podium of drivers not already into next month's Zone Group Challenge Championship. So you will hear from first, second, fourth, and fifth in the post-race interviews coming up in just a moment. Ogun Garout was sixth. Moises Mardini seventh. It was Bob Moore who finished eighth. Ryan Korzeniowski in ninth and 10th to Zone 1's Paul Salt. Taylor.
Sebastiano Ballestieri will come home 11th, followed by Gregory Sampson in 12th. Carl Borcheri will come home in 13th, followed by Andrew Cheslock in 14th. Aaron Ambrosino, tough break award for him with that penalty at a serve. Started third, will come home 15th, followed by Thomas LeMay in 16th. And Adam Gerling will come home 17th. The last car on the lead lap, Arnie Clayson in 18th. The first car one lap down, Thomas Doherty with Curtis Crummell rounding out your top 20.
21st tonight, of course, is Nick Paglia with Tom Crane behind him in 21st. Ryan McGee in 23rd. James Lajoie in 24th. Ronald Cahill in 25th. Daniel Rubel 26th. And Scott Lilly in 27th.
That completes your full field rundown for the sport class presented by Pirelli, and we will turn our attention from the rundown to the drivers and get a chance to chat with the man who finished second overall tonight. It's Will Waldron who now joins us in the booth. And Will, those final few moments with Keith, you saw him charging, you knew he had the pace. Were you worried about having to race him head to head, knowing what's on the line for you and what he already has wrapped up? Did you have a game plan as to what you were going to do if he caught you?
Yeah, absolutely. I kind of handed the opportunity to him. I just kind of screwed up on that last segment there, and I was trying to run good pace, and then I really had to run good pace when he got to me. So yeah, just a bad case of nerves there. It was a rough one. I mean, I was out there just making laps, but it was intense for me.
Intense indeed, but at the same time, you scored more points than anybody else of the folks not already qualified for the Zone Group Challenge Championship in both the first and the second week. I have to believe that's going to be a huge boost for you, and it takes the pressure off of you in these final 2 weeks as you fight to make April's championship races.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm psyched about that. You know, I thought this race was going to be perhaps a giveaway, you know, if something bad would happen and I'd kind of scrape out of it and charge on for the next two. But yeah, I was really happy. The start went well. You know, the guys raced really nice through there. We avoided anything, and that was the key to it. Just keep my head down. But yeah, I'm really happy to be taking the points. It's a big deal.
You get the points. You get the opportunity to lead us all into Road America next week. What do you expect out of that circuit?
Oh, well, the kink is synonymous with chaos, so there might be some wreckage going on there. So that's pretty scary. Some long straights, you know, some good draft passing. I've driven that course a bunch, so I'm fairly comfortable with it. Unlike this one, where I just got it last week. But yeah, potential for carnage, I think. But it's a great track nonetheless.
Well, congratulations on being the top finisher amongst the drivers who have not already qualified for the Zone Group Challenge Championship, and we'll see you in Wisconsin next Friday night.
Thank you, sir. Good night.
Will Waldron, fastest amongst our non-qualified drivers in P2 overall. We slide now to the next man in line, and it's Taylor Burris, who's going to chat with Dean Chapman.
Here with Dean Chapman tonight, coming home in a strong finish here at Sonoma Raceway, but also clinching a chance to make it to the Zone Group Challenge Championship races. Dean, how do you feel about that performance you had today?
Yeah, I think it was a pretty solid performance. Keith was all over me all the way around. I knew he was faster, but he looked like he was more than capable of taking me. Yeah, it was a fun race. I like to thank Chris Braun and Josh Vieira for all the work they've been doing behind the scenes with coaching everybody, obviously James Hoth too, and my wife for putting up with me all the time racing. It's so much fun.
Now, Dean, we gotta ask, what is the design behind your paint scheme with this Porsche? I mean, we see the cat on there, so give us a little bit of background about this.
Yeah, so I'm a designer by trade, and I was looking around for something that was a little bit crazy for the Wildcat. With Zone 1 Wildcats. And I came up with that. It was an old punk rock symbol they used to use on record labels. So now I'm showing my age. But punk rock scared cat.
Well, we see that indeed, and I think we're starting to get a little bit of a theme tonight, James, with paint schemes and rock and roll music.
I like that thought. I think you're definitely onto something there, Taylor.
Well, with that, Dean, before we go, your thoughts on the next round at Road America?
Yep, I wish I could be there, but I'll be down in Sebring watching Real Life the 12. So good luck to everybody taking part, and look forward to seeing the race on the YouTube channel.
Of course, and hopefully you have a safe travels down to my neck of the woods down here in Sebring. So I hope to see you soon, and enjoy the rest of your time, and we'll see you at the next time you compete.
Thanks, guys.
That is Dean Chapman, as he is one of the highest finishers who has yet made a chance to be in the Zone Group Challenge Championship. But we have one more to talk to. Rachel is with Antonio da Silva.
I am, thank you, yes. And I believe we have Antonio here.
Yeah, that's him.
Hey, Antonio, great race today, of course. Starting off in 7th place, finished 5th today overall, but that's 3rd of the non-qualified drivers, so a fantastic result for you today. Is Sonoma track you really resonate with?
No, it's, I'm from the East Coast, and California is too far to get there and drive. It's just that I practice enough through the week. I was lucky enough to qualify a little bit further up front, and that way I avoid a whole lot of the usual carnage on lap 1, whether it's turn 1, 2, 3, or 4. Once we went through that and past that, then it was safe haven from there on, and I was really lucky. And luck is all. If you got luck on your side, it's half of the race already.
Absolutely, and sounds like a very sensible man with the first lap carnage here, of course. But this race, obviously, being a very different track to what we experienced at Watkins Glen, and moving on to Road America, which in fact has more in kin with Watkins Glen. Do you find that track's going to be a whole different race for you?
Definitely. It's a whole together different track. This track is really technical. There's a lot of turns, and a lot of those turns are obviously combined together. You need to be really careful. Don't mess up the first one, so you can do well in the second. The next 2 tracks are much wider open, better, longer straights, a little higher speed, a whole different attitude. And I enjoy this, but I'm glad it's behind, and we don't have to drive it again for a while.
Absolutely. Well, congratulations on today, and anybody you'd like to thank or give a shout out to?
Yeah, I'd like to actually thank Argam. I think Argam is already qualified, and he was behind me for quite a while. I think he was patient enough not to scare me too much, and gave me a whole lot of his patience gave me a lot of more confidence to finish and not get in trouble. I want to thank him. Yes.
Awesome. Well, thanks for joining us. Antonio da Silva coming home today in 1st place overall, 3rd of the unqualified drivers. James?
Antonio da Silva, the 3rd amongst the unqualified drivers, leaves us one man left to chat with, and that's the overall winner. How about Dave Craig? 21.5 seconds. You were better than everybody else here by head, shoulders, and then some. So, where did you find the pace at this place? What clicked for you and made this look so easy over the 30-minute stretch?
I don't really know. This track just kind of clicked for me this week, and I felt good right away, and my setup felt good. But honestly, I feel like the results are a little misleading. Dan Rubel had a mechanical failure with his pedals, it looks like. And if you look at practice and qualifying, that guy laid down 25 flats. I had never put in a lap in that neighborhood, and the 24.9 or whatever I did in qualifying, that is the one and only lap I've ever done in my life under a 25. So I was just pushing for everything I had to stay in front of Dan. So I'm kind of beat up that he wasn't able to stay in the race because I was geared up to be fighting him for half an hour and it didn't happen.
So then to some degree, maybe it's just the residual of mentally preparing yourself for that, and then not necessarily having to go out like that, but you were ready to go run 25s anyway and willing to push it that hard too, no?
Yeah, and it really comes from racing guys like Dan and Robert Rose, who won the challenge race, Josh Vieira. Those are the guys I'm running against all week in our zone group. And so that's really, the training grounds where it's because of people like that setting the bar that I feel like I have to keep improving. So it's really a credit to our group and the pace that everybody's showing. I'm one of the group.
One of the many, but you're representing your zone very well, Dave, and you've got Road America on the docket next Friday night. Initial thoughts on heading up to the Midwest?
Yeah, it's exciting. It's not a track I'm very experienced at. I've only run a couple races there, but I feel like it's similar to Watkins Glen, at least in my mind. So, I feel good, feel comfortable going there, and it should be an exciting and fun race. I can't wait.
Well, congratulations on your victory tonight, Dave, from all of us at Podium Esports. Thanks for the time, and we'll see you at Road America next Friday night.
Absolutely. Thanks a lot for what you guys do, too. You guys do an awesome job. We appreciate it.
Dave Craig, your race winner in the sport class for PCA Sim Racing. Of course, the sport class tonight presented to you by Pirelli. Power is nothing without control. PCA Sim Racing, where the cars aren't real but the racing is, presented to you by Hagerty Motorsports. We are halfway home in tonight's proceedings, and for those of you watching on YouTube, it's that time once again. Go down to the bottom left, click the blue button, go back to the main channel page, and head on over to the club class video, which is where we will have our next race. For those of you watching on places not named YouTube, stay right where you are. We'll have more coverage of PCA Sim Racing in just a moment. This is the PCA Sim Racing Zone Group Challenge, round number 2 from Sonoma Raceway, live on Podium Esports.